For as long as I can remember, I've always been massively socially anxious. When I was a kid, I could not make friends, and the very idea to talk to someone would terrify me. I ended up doing 3 years of therapy from 7 to 10 years old with a therapist because of my social anxiety and my inability to make friends. Now, this might come as a surprise for some of you who are watching my videos, where you can see me literally dancing with thousands of people all around the world and approaching random people on the street. But at the core, believe me, I'm an introvert. I'm a pretty shy person. It's been a journey, it's been a process, and I still do feel social anxiety every single day to this day. I just learned throughout the years to deal with it. I've learned some tips, some techniques that I'm using every day. And hopefully in this video, I can pass some of them to you so that if you feel socially anxious as well, this can help you to deal with it, overcome it. Starting with number 1, understand why you have social anxiety. Social anxiety at the core for 90% of the people, I would assume, is just a fear of rejection. Fear of rejection is a completely normal and natural thing. When you think about it, when we first appeared as human beings on Earth thousands of years ago, we were meant to stay with groups of 150 people, roughly. At the time, being rejected by the group could mean death. Imagine you were in danger, there was like a wild animal attacking you. If you were rejected by the group, they would not come rescue you, so that could mean death. But being part of the group could mean that you would survive. This was super important to be at all costs part of the group and to not be rejected. Now, in our modern society, being rejected by the group doesn't mean death. There is always another group you can be part of. But there are still social situations where being rejected by a group could mean a lot of bad things. So it is normal to fear that fear of rejection. It is completely part of us as human beings. Now, how do you overcome that fear of rejection? Is by accepting rejection as part of life. You've been rejected, you are rejected now sometimes, and you will be in your life. Rejection is just a constant in life. This is like the rent you're paying for being on this earth. Every time you're going to a social interaction, every time you're putting yourself out there, you might be rejected. There is no such thing as being friends with everyone. Get this out of your head. This is the thing that makes us suffer as teenagers a lot, is that we think there is a world where we can be friends with everybody because we see some people and we're like, oh, they seem to be friends with everybody. But at the core, we're never friends with everybody. It doesn't exist. It's not possible. When I was in high school, the first few years, I didn't have many friends. I still struggled massively with social anxiety. I was really afraid of being rejected. And the reason was I was trying to be friends with the wrong people. I was seeing the cool kids, you know, the ones drinking and smoking and partying and having bad grades and too cool for school and mocking people, criticizing, bullying. And I thought, I need to be friends with them because they are the cool kids. I know, stupid idea. But I tried for a couple of years, it never worked. And it's only when I accepted rejection as part of life, when I realized, you know what, I'll always be rejected by them. I will never be friends with them. It's only when I accepted that I could see all the other doors being open and seeing all the other kids who I could potentially really be friends with. And it's only when I accepted that I would be never accepted by the cool kids that I could finally become friends with the people who would genuinely love me for who I was. And fast forward a couple of years later, the last week of high school, just before going to college, I was voted most popular kid in school. And the reason was that I was friends with everyone except the cool kids. So all the cool kids, they voted for each other, but the majority of the school was made out of normal kids. Next, understand that social anxiety is an emotion. Just like sadness, just like anger, just like happiness, just like joy, you feel socially anxious. Really owning the fact that it's an emotion is gonna help you tremendously. And if you watched the movie Inside Out, it's kind of the whole message of the movie is that every emotion is important and you should feel every emotion. They have a purpose. And basically understanding that it's an emotion is gonna help you to disidentify from it. So the problem is that a lot of us, when we feel social anxiety, we think that we are socially anxious. And I've used it in this video. I know it's actually wrong, like I should not say that, because you are not socially anxious. You feel social anxiety. These are two very different things. The problem is that you can get trapped by thinking that you're just a socially anxious person. But just because you feel it doesn't mean you are it. You are not your emotions. Just like if you feel sadness many times in your life, it doesn't mean you're a sad person. It just means you feel sadness a lot. And also understand that it's a spectrum. Everybody feels at least a little bit social anxiety in their life. It's just like, how much do you feel? Some people, like, they will feel super big social anxiety, and some people will not feel that much. But just like sadness, some people do feel more sad more often, and some people feel joy more often. These are emotions, and the tricky thing with emotions is that you don't control them, and you should not try to control them. These are just things that you feel, they just happen to you. The thing you can control is your reaction to it. It's never your fault that you feel social anxiety, just like it's not your fault that you feel sadness or anger or joy or these kind of things. You just feel it, but it is your responsibility to do something about it. Next, admit that you're scared. You are feeling anxious. We socially anxious people, we love to lie and BS ourselves about this. We will not say, I'm socially anxious, I don't want to go to this event, I don't want to go talk to that person. And we will find excuses and we will rationalize by using other words. We will say, I just don't want to bother people. I don't want to talk to that person. I don't want to disturb them. I don't want to be impolite and things like that. And this is just rationalizing your fear. Just own it. Be honest with it. You do feel socially anxious. The problem is that we as human beings, for us, it's very hard to admit the emotion of fear. This is something we feel a lot of shame about. Like, it's way easier to say I'm angry or I'm sad, I'm joyful and stuff like that. Admitting that we are scared and that we are afraid, we don't like that as human beings. No, be honest with yourself. You're actually afraid about it. It's okay. It's an emotion. Everybody feels it sometimes. You're actually scared. Now it is your job to do something about it, which leads me to the next point. See the value of doing it. We human beings, we love to do things where we know we're going to have the reward. And so you have to be aware of the reward of going over your fear, taking action, and actually start talking to people and get over your social anxiety. With social anxiety, we do a lot of scenario in our brain and we see all the bad things that can happen. Like, I will go talk to that person and they will reject me and I will be embarrassed in front of everybody. So we see like the risk, we see the pain that we can experiment. What I really invite you to do is to also imagine the good things that can happen, the reward you can get from that. And actually talking to someone, starting a conversation with someone you don't know, it's one of the biggest asymmetric risks in life, which means that the risk that you're taking, which is like the risk of embarrassment, talking to a stranger, they reject you, you feel embarrassed, it's a very low risk when you think about it. You're embarrassed for 2 minutes, you kind of dwell on it for 20 minutes, but who cares? There are a lot of human beings on earth, it's all fine. But the reward you can get from talking to a random stranger is enormous. Like, think about it. You could meet someone who would become your best friend. You could meet someone who would become years later your wife or your husband or someone you will travel the world with. So it is like one of the things in life where the risk is very low, but the reward is absolutely amazing. Next, you want to realize that people are afraid as well. You're not alone in this. As I said, this is not a I'm socially anxious and you are not socially anxious type of scenario. It is a spectrum where everybody is on that spectrum. Everybody's feeling a little bit of social anxiety, at least in their life. Everybody's feeling a little bit of sadness. Everybody is feeling a little bit of anger. Everybody's feeling a little bit of joy. Some people feel more socially anxious, some people feel less, but everybody's feeling it in a certain way. If there is someone telling you, dude, I have never social anxiety, I'm never anxious about anything, they're just lying or they're trying to sell you a program or whatever. Social interactions are hard, they're challenging, relationships in life are challenging, and so everybody is afraid. If I actually do the first step, because the other person is afraid as well, they're actually gonna thank me. If you become friends with that person that you randomly talk to, that person later on will thank you because they were afraid as well. And just realize that you're not alone in this. That's huge. Every time you're suffering with some things, like with some emotions or whatever, realizing that other people are feeling that way too is always helping us. Next, you might want to consider it as a challenge. Instead of putting like yourself big pressure of like, oh, I'm just gonna talk to someone, you know, there is this person in my classroom who looks cool and stuff, like, I'm a little bit afraid. Consider it as a challenge. Tell yourself that you're just gonna talk to random people, like start up conversation with people you don't know every once in a while. I remember when I started my journey to overcome my social anxiety, I was thinking I'll just start up a conversation with one person every day. So 7 people per week. I would do just the smallest things. I would just ask for someone, what is the time? Do you know at what time the bus is coming? Like, do you know what is the way to go there? Basically, what you want to do is that, especially if you're really feeling a lot of social anxiety, you should celebrate the small wins, because this is what's going to help you to keep going forward. You should celebrate the fact that you've tried, not that you've succeeded. Being like, oh, I actually did it. Next is the concept of fear exposure. The only way to get over your fear of talking to people is just by exposing yourself to it. You can watch thousands of videos, you can read thousands of books about it, you can talk about it to many people. The only thing that is gonna help you getting over your social anxiety is by actually putting yourself out there, taking actions, and exposing yourself to the fear. One of the strategies is basically to expose yourself a little bit too much to the fear. Let's say that you want to just be able to start up conversations with strangers. You don't want to be afraid anymore to make new friends, to be at a party or at an event or in a classroom or at work. Imagine this is your end goal. One thing that some therapists would recommend is to do really crazy things, like just start dancing in the streets. You dance like nobody's watching, and that's certainly things that I've done in the past. Or you just start randomly singing in the subway, in a nightclub, just high five everyone. These are things that can help you to overexpose yourself to your fear of rejection and your social anxiety. I loved to do planking when I was starting my journey about social anxiety. I would just lay on the floor in the middle of a square or in the middle of the street just to overexpose myself to it. And so every time then that I was in a bar and I wanted to talk to someone I didn't know, I was like, well, I've done so much worse. Like, I've literally laid down in the middle of the street full of people and no one really cared. Then talking to a stranger felt very easy because I realized that I've had done so much more. So broadly speaking, there are like two types of fear exposure. There is one that is like over the top and there is one that is more like baby step. And the way you want to see it is kind of like going into a swimming pool. You either like dive right into it, and then there is like the baby step. Both work great depending on what type of person you are. I'm a big fan of like dip dive. You splash water, everything. You go from completely dry outside of the swimming pool to completely wet inside of it. This is how I approach swimming pool. You know, I'm afraid of the water. It's cold and stuff. I'm like, don't even think about it. Just jump yourself right into it. 1 second later, you're like, oh my God, I'm completely in the water and I'm fine. This is kind of the equivalent of like massive fear exposure of like singing in the streets and like dancing in the streets. And then there is like the baby step method, which can work for other people. You just dip in your toe and then you put a little bit of water in your body, and then like you put one leg, another leg, then your lower part of the body, and then finally you're completely inside the swimming pool. Basically with the baby step, you can go like just step by step, super small step at a time. First day, you might consider it as a challenge to just like ask for the time to one person. You just stop someone in the street and you're like, I forgot my phone, I don't have a watch, what is the time? And then the next day you go a little bit above. You might ask the person, what is the way to this place? Because then it's not just asking the time, it's like they have to tell you the way to go somewhere. And then the third day, you try to actually like start a conversation with the person. You're like, oh, I actually like your shoes. Where did you buy them? Oh, it's pretty cool. What's the story behind your hat or whatever? Just trying to have like a small conversation with a stranger. And you kind of build up on that. And ideally, you should have a combination of both. But bear in mind that over the long run, it only works if you care. It's all good to go over the top, to really overexpose yourself to that fear, to really do crazy things like dancing in the streets, like talking to 100 strangers on the night. But at the end of the day, what you really need is to actually talk to people you care about. You could talk to 100 random strangers on the streets in one day and feel amazing because you're like, wow, my God, look at that. I really went over my fears. But the thing is, like, if you don't care about these people, you're not gonna learn so much. At the end of the day, your end goal, I assume for most people, is you just want to be able to be in a social environment with people you care about and to be able to talk to the people. When you overexpose yourself to the fear, there is always going to be something lacking in it. This technique of overexposing yourself to the fear, like singing in a subway, dancing in the street like nobody's watching, it's all good because it's going to prove you one thing that is key in life, is that nobody cares. Everybody's in their own heads, everybody has their own problem, it's all good. And that's a liberating feeling. The thing with fear exposure is that it's all great, and seeing it as a challenge, it's really gonna help, like dancing in the streets and like singing in the streets, but it's not gonna be enough because you're still playing. You're treating it as a challenge. At the end of the day, sooner or later, you will have to do something that really matters to you, and you will have to start talking to people you really care about. And the best example for that, imagine a guy who's really in love with a girl in his school. To go over his fear, he will just do the fear exposure thing. He would just go randomly on a Friday night in a bar and he would start talking to 100 girls and he would prove himself, I'm not afraid of girls. I've exposed myself to that fear enough. I went above and beyond. It's fine. But chances are he will still be afraid of talking to the girl at school because he actually cares about that girl. And that's the whole difference. The real fear is when you care about someone. You're in your classroom, you really want to become friends with that person. If they reject you, there is a consequence. You're gonna see that person over and over again and you're gonna be embarrassed. The ultimate way to go over your fear is to just do it, to really talk to the person you care about. For the guy in the story, if he talks to 100 random girls on a Friday night in the streets and in bars, this will actually be less scary and less fearful than if he actually talks to his crush at school. So at some point, you just have to do it with people you care about. You really want to become friends with that person, you have to expose yourself to that fear and to actually go for it. And it's kind of actually the next point, which is you just have to do it. At the end of the day, that's kind of the whole message of this whole video, is that you can read 100 books and watch 100 videos, and there is only one way to get over your fear, to do anything in life. You just have to do it. It's very hard to teach someone to do something. It's kind of like when people ask me, like, how are you comfortable asking random people on the streets, approaching random strangers, dancing with random strangers? The only way to do it is by doing it. You just have to start. At first, you're gonna look really stupid and scared and anxious and uncomfortable and weird and stuff like that, but slowly but surely, you're gonna become better at it. Which leads us to the next part of this video, which is all about actionable step, how to actually do it and how to actually start up conversation with strangers and meeting new people. So let's get right into it. Number one is find your people. It will be 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times easier for you to make friends and to be less socially anxious if you are meeting people you genuinely like and want to get to know. The problem with teenage years is that many of us, we end up being in a classroom with 25 people and none of them share the same interest as we share. And so we think there is something wrong with us, that we're just weird kids, socially anxious, and that we will never have friends. But then we grow up and we realize that we were just in the wrong place with the wrong people. And it doesn't mean that these people were bad people, it just means that you didn't share the same interest, you didn't have the same values. But there are ways around it. Basically, your job is to find your people. List the things that you're really interested in, all your passions, your hobbies, and if you don't know them, this is your job to find them. What do you do in your free time? What types of video are you watching on YouTube? What types of things are you reading? What types of movies are you watching? What do you do every Saturday, every Sunday? If you're really into Harry Potter, for example, and you're rewatching the whole movies all the time and you're reading the books over and over again, don't be ashamed. That's totally fine. It is your job to find people who are interested in the same things as you are. And that's going to be game changing in your life, because it's going to be so much easier to start up the conversation with someone who has the same interest as you have. When I started finding people during teenage years who were interested in dancing just as much as I was, I started having friends. It was so much easier to start up a conversation with the person. But when I was trying to get accepted by the cool kids, what they were talking about, bullying people and criticizing and mocking people, and then like how much they were going to drink the weekend, and I could not relate to them. I could not add anything to the conversation. One of the big misconceptions with social interactions is that people say the opposite attracts each other. I think that's a big lie. It's not the opposite that attracts each other. It's the common interest. Think about every friend you had in your life. Chances are you bonded over a common passion. You have this friend and you're like, oh, how did you meet each other? Well, we met because we both liked Harry Potter and we talked about it for hours. How did you meet this friend? Well, we both hated that teacher and we bonded over that fact. It could be really little things. Now it is your job to find locations, places, events where you can meet these people. What worked for me is that I realized really early on that I loved learning languages. And there is one amazing thing, it's called conversation tables. It's basically a bunch of people who gather in a room, they create different tables, and every table speaks a different language. There is a table with Spanish, a table with German, a table with French, English, whatever. And you just go to the table and there is a bunch of people who speak together, who talk together the language that they want to learn. So I was learning Spanish, and then I would go to the table and I would just start talking to people. And that was the easiest thing ever, because I could just go to the people and be like, how long have you been learning the language? And what's your journey with the language? Why do you want to learn it? And boom, it was so much easier because we would talk about our love for the language. And I did the same with dancing. I really loved dancing early on. And so I would just go to places where people danced the dance that I loved. And one amazing thing going to these activities is that it allows you to put yourself in a position where you don't even have to start the conversation. People will come to you. If you're really into like Harry Potter and you go to a Harry Potter gathering, chances are you will just come there and people will start talking to you because everybody will just assume that everybody in the room is into Harry Potter. And think about how easy it's gonna be to just start up a conversation with a stranger. It's only when I really accepted my passions and my hobbies and my centers of interests, and that I really owned it and went to the places where people shared the same interests and values, that I became good socially, because it's just so easy to make friends when you share the same passion. Now, how do you actually do it? How do you actually start up a conversation? Make this a rule for your life. Always go first. Put your ego aside and commit to yourself that you will always be the one taking the first step. There is no excuse. If you really want to go over your social anxiety, if you really want to be the best social version of yourself, you have to accept to always go first. You see that person, they seem to have a nice energy, you like their outfit, you are this Harry Potter gathering, they love Harry Potter, you love Harry Potter, you want to get to know them, go first. Don't wait for them to come to you. They are afraid as well. This is something that I always do. I don't wait for people to come to me. I always come to them. I put my ego aside and I accept that maybe for the rest of my life, everyone that I will meet, I will be the one taking the first step. And surely enough, this is kind of what happened these past few years. Like if I look at all the friendships I made for the past like 7 years or so, I was always the one taking the first step. I was always the one introducing myself, and I'm okay with it. I don't take it badly. I don't think like no one wants to talk to me. I just assume that everybody's as afraid as me and that people have their own problems. And my dad goes a step beyond. He tells me that he's always the one calling his friends. And I'm like, aren't you tired? Like after all these years, you're always the one like starting the thing. And he's like, no, it's okay. I put my ego aside, I call them, and if I generally feel that they are happy to receive my call and that we really spend hours on the phone, then I keep doing it. People have their own lives, people have their own problems, people are afraid as well. Always go first. So how do you actually start up the conversation with someone? What is the line? What is the opening line? What do you say to them first? It's kind of awkward. And the only rule with that is that it never matters. People will never remember what's the first thing you said to them in life. 100% of the friendships I have, people don't remember what was the first line I said to them or what was the first line they said to me. And if you're really looking for a line, go to the person and say like, hey, I thought you looked cool. I like your energy. You seem to have a great vibe. My name is Ed. Nice to meet you. That's it. Don't even think about it. Just throw yourself in the interaction. Just break the ice. Don't try to be original. Don't try to make a joke. Just start the conversation. A good thing is to go situational. For example, you are at this Harry Potter gathering and you see that person dressed as a character of Harry Potter. Then it's perfect to say, hey, I like your outfit. This is like part of the situation where you can ask him, hey, is it your first time here? If they're drinking a coffee, you can be like, how's the coffee? Do you like it? Because I'm thinking about getting myself one. 90% of the time, the person will be like, oh, that's sweet, cool. They will say their name and stuff like that. And you will start the conversation. Next, one very useful thing to do to protect you from that kind of fear and that embarrassment and stuff is to acknowledge it. This is like game changer. So you throw yourself into the interaction, you start up the conversation, and you right away acknowledge that it is a little bit awkward. So you say, hey, you seem to have a great vibe, you seem to have a great energy. My name is Zed, nice to meet you. Right away you can say, it's a little bit awkward, I know, we don't know each other, and I'm a little bit uncomfortable because I usually don't do that. I usually don't talk to strangers. I'm actually a little bit socially anxious. I'm a little bit afraid, but I really wanted to meet you. This is what I do all the time when I approach people in the streets. My whole job is to ask people around the world if they can teach me a dance move. This is a really weird question. People usually, they've never heard that question before. They never thought about their dance move, and we are in the middle of the street. They might be doing some shoppings. They might have been just dumped from a relationship. They might have just went back from work, or like they had university, and some random stranger from Belgium is asking, hey, can you teach me your favorite dance move? Right away, usually I kind of like acknowledge the fact that it is a weird situation, and it just helps tremendously because like saying it kind of like, already feel better because you kind of like, you acknowledge the fact that it's not common to just start talking to random strangers in the streets or at events. And then at some point you will not have to acknowledge it anymore. Many times when I'm in the streets, I'm just like, hey, would you teach me a dance move? You seem to be cool, let's go. I don't even acknowledge it, that it's awkward or that it's a little bit embarrassing, because I'm not embarrassed anymore. But if I am, and if I feel a little bit afraid, I will acknowledge it, and that is fine. There is nothing to be ashamed of. The best place to start a conversation is always in the middle. This is game changer. Think like the person you're meeting is an old friend. So if you would meet an old friend that you've known for 10 years, you would never start the conversation in the beginning. You would never be like, hey, so where are you from? What do you do for a living? It's an old friend. You don't have to ask them that. You already know it. You would always start the conversation in the middle. You'd be like, oh, have you seen the game this weekend? Have you seen this movie and stuff? And this is like working so well with just starting a conversation with a stranger. So typically you are at this Harry Potter gathering and you see that person, you want to get to know them. You're kind of like, hey, I thought you looked cool. My name is Ed. Nice to meet you. I know it's a little bit awkward because I usually don't do that. I'm a little bit afraid. I really wanted to meet you. And they say, okay, my name is like Peter. And then you start a conversation in the middle, like, how's the coffee, for example. Everything that is situational is always going to be the best. What you want is to avoid at all costs the job interview type of conversation. You don't want to ask the big questions. What do you do for a living? Where are you from? Everybody's always asking these questions and they're kind of like boring, and a lot of people actually don't enjoy speaking about these things. One very good place to start is by asking them what led you to come here. This is going to be such an open question that's going to allow them to really talk for a lot of time if they want to. Because they're going to tell you, well, I've always loved Harry Potter, I've researched like some places where people gathered, or my friends told me about this, and here I am. And sometimes they will even tell you where they're from and what they do for a living, if you really want to know that. Like they will tell you, yeah, because I do this in life, and so that led me to this. Just by asking them what led you to come here, this is going to open a lot of things. What you really want to do is to ask open questions. You don't want to ask questions that are easily answered by a yes or a no, or a number, or just a really close and simple and fast answer. You don't want to ask people like, do you like Harry Potter? They would be like, yes or no. You might want to ask them, what has been your favorite book and why? One really good tip with conversation is to always ask for the feelings instead of asking for the facts. Because facts don't matter, the feelings do. It doesn't matter that the favorite book of the person is like book number 5. What matters is what feelings did they feel while reading? Why exactly is it book number 5? These are super open questions that allow people to dive deep. Don't ask these questions like too fast because you can look like a freak, but if you feel comfortable and you feel that the conversation is going in a good direction, you can ask about these things and people will genuinely be happy to talk about their feelings and how they feel about a certain situation. One very good tip in conversation is to ask for stories. Instead of asking them for facts, just ask them like the story of something. What has been your story with Harry Potter? How did you fall in love with the books? What has been your journey with the movies? Like, do you like them as much as the books? And when was the first time you watched them? It's going to be so much easier for people to just talk about their story because it's so unique to them. And then the gold tip in conversation is to ask about passions and hobbies. Instead of asking, what do you do for a living? Which surprisingly is a question that a lot of people don't like, because a lot of people don't like what they're doing. They do it because they have to do it. They have to earn a living. Usually these questions are not the best questions to ask to someone. Chances are you are at a gathering or at an event or at a party and people don't want to think about this. They don't want to think about their job. They don't want to think about their studies because they are stressed about these two things. But what people always love to talk about is about their passions and their hobbies. Look, I've been sometimes talking to people for hours and I don't even know what the person is doing in their life. I care if they care. If they really want to tell me that, they will. But I'm not gonna force it to them. Maybe they don't like what they do for a living, and so I'm not gonna ask them. If they want to talk about it, they will. What I will ask them is about their passion, their hobby. As soon as you can bond with someone over a common interest, you in. Which leads me to the next tip in conversation. The most common cliche in conversational tips and how to make friends and stuff like that is, if you want to be interesting, be interested. And I'm really happy to say that this cliche is 100% true. If you really become curious about other human beings, you will be the most interesting person in the room. You will make friends so easily. And it's a skill. It is something you can develop. My dad always tells me, I'm just passionate about passionate people. I just love hearing about the passion of people. Someone can be really passionate about pigeons, and I don't care about pigeons, but I will listen to them an entire evening because I just want them to talk about their passion, because I see the stars in their eyes and I see the passion, and I get to learn about something that I don't know anything about, which is pigeons. Now, you have to be honest. Don't fake it. Like, if you're really not interested in what the person is saying, then it's okay. You don't have to become best friend with that person. But just developing that habit of becoming curious and being interested in pretty much everything is a very good habit in life. And this is when a super important tip comes, which is genuinely listen. This is one thing that one of my teachers told us when I was a teenager, and he said, look, when you talk to someone, you sometimes make them happy. But when you listen to someone, you always make them happy. At the end of the day, we're human beings. We crave someone who genuinely listens to what we're saying. If you really want to develop amazing relationships and become great at conversations and stuff like that, this is an amazing habit you can develop, because then everybody will want to be friends with you. We all love to be listened by someone. The problem we have as human beings is that when someone speaks, instead of listening, we're kind of like formulating what we're gonna say next. And this is a trap you don't want to fall into. You want to catch yourself doing it and be like, no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm really gonna listen to what they say, so that when they're done, I can probably ask them a new question. If you really commit to yourself to only speak to people that you're really interested in, then you're gonna become a good listener, because you're really gonna be interested in the person. Like, you picked to talk to that person because you were really interested in that person. Next tip, at some point, you will have to speak. Now, a lot of us socially anxious people, we love to listen. We love to ask questions because we're kind of anxious, we're kind of afraid. And so it's very comfortable actually for us to just listen to the person is saying. And I have friends that I know, they will just ask questions all the time, but they will not speak. And that's a trap you don't want to fall into too much. At some point, if you really want to develop true relationship and true friendships with people, you will have to open up. You will have to speak about your feelings, about your stories. And that's definitely a trap that I've fallen many times in my life. I was so interested in what the person was saying, and I was so afraid about my own insecurities and that I was not that interesting and stuff like that. I would just listen for hours to everyone speaking. But at some point, people started coming to me and being like, we don't really know who you are. You're just asking questions all the time and you're really interested, and that's all good and we love you for that, but we don't really know who you are. And that's something you want to avoid. At some point, you have to trust the person enough so that you can really open up about yourself. And it doesn't mean you have to share like traumas and like really big things, but just if they tell you what's their favorite book on Harry Potter, you should probably at some point tell them what is yours and explain a little bit why, tell the story, answer the question. And then, you know, you had this great conversation with that person, congratulations. What do you do next? Well, you keep in touch. At the end of the day, going over your social anxiety, your fear of rejection, putting yourself out there, it's all great and stuff, but don't forget why you do it in the first place. To build friendships, long-lasting friendships and long-lasting relationships. You're in this for the long term. You don't want to be the guy who speaks to like hundreds of people but ends up not building anything significant with anyone. The only way to actually become friends over the long run with someone is to keep in touch. And the same rule applies for everything. You have to go first. Just like you were the first one to take the first step to start a conversation with someone, you are the one offering to see the person again. To be like, hey, let's connect over Instagram, let's text each other on WhatsApp, there is this event there, we should totally come together. And if you have a shared passion in common, it's gonna be easier, because if you really like Harry Potter, both of you, you can always text them sometimes and be like, hey, there is this other gathering, do you want to join? We should go together. It's gonna feel awkward again, it's gonna feel scary again, but that's exactly why you should do it, to get over your fear of social anxiety. And then you want to celebrate small wins. That's something, again, that we socially anxious people have a problem to do. Like, it's very hard to celebrate wins, especially when you're starting out and you're putting yourself out there. You might, and you probably will, experience a lot of rejections because you don't really know what to do. You don't really have the conversational skills yet, and you might be too high energy or too low energy, and people might think you weird and stuff. So you will go through some rejections. And it's very hard in these times to celebrate the small wins, but it's very important. Basically, the trick you want to use is you want to celebrate the input, not the output. You want to celebrate the trying, not the outcome. You want to tap yourself on the shoulder by saying, I've tried. It was really hard for me to put myself out there, but I did it. I went to this event, I was super scared, I started talking to people, I did it. And the outcome, so far doesn't matter. You have to be kind with yourself. You've came a long way, and just because that person didn't want to be friends with you and seemed a little bit cold, it doesn't take away the fact that you've tried it. I celebrate this small win. It was hard, but I did it anyway. Success is never guaranteed. We are human beings. Sometimes we connect with people, sometimes we don't. And if the person rejects you, don't take it personally. They might be going through some things. Imagine you're at this Harry Potter gathering again, you talk to that person, they're very closed, they're very cold with you. Sometimes it has nothing to do with you. They've just had an argument with their girlfriend or their boyfriend, they've just been fired from their job. So don't judge yourself. If it doesn't work this time, it will the next time. It's just about celebrating the small wins and getting yourself out there again. Now, there are two things I want to address before closing this video. Number one is that it is totally okay and encouraged actually to learn about social skills. For some reason, there is a big stigma in society about social skills. A lot of people will tell you, you don't need to learn about these things. Oh, you want to learn how to make friends and talk to people? It's just easy. You just talk to the people, just be yourself and stuff like that. Guess what? No. It doesn't work like that. For some of us, social skills don't come naturally. We've always been kind of awkward in social interactions, and we actually need to learn about it. Maybe these people who are saying these things oh, this comes naturally and stuff like that, maybe they had two parents who were very good socially. They've never been socially anxious. They always had friends coming over at home. They always had cousins and extended family coming over. They always had friends. They had birthday parties and stuff like that. And for them, social skills always came naturally. They think they have the right to tell you that you just have to let it happen, it just comes naturally, just be yourself. That is just BS. Screw these people. They don't know what you're going through. Maybe you grew up with two parents who had no friends, who were extremely socially anxious. They never took you to any gatherings, any social events. Maybe you never had cousins coming over to your family. You never had friends coming over. You never celebrated birthday parties, and you were always kind of awkward in social settings. If you're in this position, it is totally okay, and it is actually a proof of courage to learn about social skills. One very good book about it that I read many years ago when I was 15 years old that has helped me tremendously throughout my life is the famous How to Make Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Now, this is a book that you can't really read in a bus or in a subway and stuff like that because it's just written how to make friends and influence people. And you're just gonna feel so weird. You will think people will think oh my God, he has to read a book about how to make friends. He can't make friends. And that's really horrible, this stigma. But if you don't have the social skill, if you want to level up, this book can really help you. It certainly helped me a lot. I've been ashamed many years to admit that I read this book, but I'm not anymore. That really made me who I am. That really helped me to understand social interactions, to be able to talk to random people, know how to make conversations, and learning about the whole topic of how to be good at conversation, how to ask great questions, how to really connect with someone else. These are really good skills in life, and these are, just like the name, a skill, something that you can learn. Some people are better at it, especially if you're an extrovert. If you're an extrovert, it will come more naturally. But if you're kind of introvert and shy, it's gonna be harder for you, but it's possible. You can learn these skills. And finally, there is no such thing as getting rid of social anxiety once and for all. This is a lie. It doesn't work like that. It is an emotion, and you will always feel at least a little bit of it. Just like there is no getting rid of sadness or anger once and for all. You can be the happiest person on earth, have a loving family, have a job you love. You will always sometimes feel sad. It's normal because hard things happen in life. You will sometimes feel anger just as much as you will feel joy and happiness and laugh. You will feel all the emotions, and anxiety is one of them. You learn how to deal with it so that next time you do feel the anxiety in a social interaction, you know what to do. The goal is to feel it a little bit less each year. Or you can do like me and try to feel it even more each year. Every year I try to challenge myself to do things that are even crazier and to talk to bigger groups and do things that make me scared. I like it because this is how I grow. This is your choice and this is your journey. And let me tell you, I still do feel social anxiety every day. Every time I go talk to a person on the streets, I feel social anxiety because I'm always afraid this person is gonna reject me. And sometimes, I'll tell you a secret, I don't go. I see a big group in the streets and I'm too afraid. I'm wow, there are 11 people and they seem so cool and stuff. I'm just too afraid. I don't go. And sometimes I wait 2-3 minutes. I turn around and I'm oh, am I gonna go? Am I not gonna go? And then I go anyway. And I'm like, oh my God, I went over my fear. It was such a big group and I was so afraid, but I did it. Sometimes I don't. It's fine. I'm a human being. You're a human being. You will always feel at least a little bit of social anxiety throughout your life. And that's okay. In these moments, you will be able to say, I feel you, I hear you, it's okay, I know you're there, but I'm gonna go anyway. Because I know what's on the other side of fear. I know that if I cross that bridge, amazing things will happen. You don't overcome social anxiety once and for all. You just learn how to dance with it. So dance with it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on another video.